Hi everyone. Um, I just thought I'd come on and say a few words about the passing of my brother Gregory. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. It was really unbelievable, the outpouring of love and affection and all the little cards and all the little messages, and I saw every one of them. I saw every single one of them. And I want to thank you all, every single message, from the smallest sentence to the longest soliloquy. I want to thank you all on behalf of all of my family and my ever dwindling family. We've lost two siblings in 2 years. So my youngest sister, Carol, passed away in 2022. And then Greg went into hospital for what seemed like just tests, and he was okay in the first week or two. I was bringing him down in the wheelchair. We were having great crack, and he was going down for a smoke, and yeah, it was all very sudden, and so that's why it took me a little while to come on and thank you all. Greg was homeless for over 30 years. Now, during that time, he spent 4 years with me and my family. Then he spent several more years with my sister Maureen and with my nieces and my nephews and my sister Carol and my brother-in-law Charlie, who looked after him very, very well for several years as well. But he just couldn't settle. And that's the thing about homelessness. If it gets into your blood, well, if it gets into your blood, you can't get rid of it. He called it the wanderlust, and I think it is the wanderlust. I still look at places, and my sister gave out to me the other day over it, but you can't help it. I still look at places and say, if I was ever stuck now, there's a good little place that I could hide in and get in out of the cold, and it's just something that's in your blood. My father was a bit of a wanderer. He went off to England for years. My grandfather never stayed in the family home. He was a street entertainer, and he's mentioned in a book of street entertainers of the 1920s. And he had a similar problem, with this wanderlust. And people who don't understand it say, "Oh, you're just abrogating your responsibilities. You should settle down into a 9 to 5." And it's like they don't fully get it. It's not something that you can put into words. It's just who you are. It's part of your DNA. It's just in you. But at this time of the year, I just want to say this, because we loved Greg so much, and the community loved Gregory so much. The proof of that is they all stood in the rain waiting on him to come, and he would have been suitably impressed that a big horse and carriage pulled up with black horses with black plumes. When he was a kid, he used to say to me, draw horses jumping up in the air. So I'd draw horses for him. And then pretty soon he took over, and he was able to draw and paint like a classically trained artist. And he was self-taught. I was self-taught, and my father was the same. He could draw and paint as well. So they're gifts that you're given from God, and how you use them is up to you. I used them in the last few decades over with my good friend Frank Allen and my other friends. We put on plays, as you know. That's our outlet, our creative outlet. But at this time of the year, I just want to say, would you keep an eye out for some homeless person who's sitting on the streets? And I'm not saying don't give money to the Simon Community or any of the other organizations. I'm not saying that. And what I'm saying is, if you have loose change, throw it into their cup, because it's not just the money, it's the fact that you went over and you said hello. So say hello to them. If you have no money, just say hello and walk by them. Because I think we tend to, especially at this time of the year, we run around and we get so caught up with, I've got to buy this and I've got to buy that and I've got to get this and I've got to get that. And when I go and I out to the greenhouse and I look at 6 bags out there that represent my brother's life on this earth, and I have still to go through them, and that's not going to be easy job. I've started already with a few that I had in here, but I've got 6 out there and 3 in here I had, and the majority of it was only fit to be thrown out. It was just clothes that he accumulated, and so they weren't suitable to give to the cerebral palsy shop. So I'm going to get my, the bags organized and give them to the charity shops. So they do need help, but the person on the street needs immediate help. And so if you have, an odd fiver or loose change or whatever it might be, and you're passing by, just say hello to them, because when I give school talks, people ask me, who are the homeless? And I say, there's somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's brother or somebody's sister, somebody's uncle, somebody's aunt. That's who they are. They're not like the government says, statistics. They are real people who just took a wrong turn in life. And I know there's a few smart Alex out there who say, oh, go get a job. Well, to them I say, how do you get a job when you haven't got an address? And how do you get an address when you haven't got a job? It's easy to pass judgment. It's easy to look down at the person on the street and say, they're just wasters. But I told the packed congregation the other day just how much of a life Greg had before it all fell apart on him. He had a wonderful home. He had 2 little daughters. He had a job. He was in the civil service. He was in Infirmary Road, Army Barracks. He was security there on the gates, and wouldn't let any of the majors in if they hadn't got their proper identification. And he was a stickler for that. And then the marriage broke up. I'm not going to apportion blame. His ex took the children, moved away, and he never seen them from that day to the day he passed away, and it destroyed him. So before you can judge anyone, think of what they might have gone through. Think of the hardship they might have endured. Imagine every night going to an alleyway or a laneway and trying to find a dry patch in there where you can stay in out of the cold and not be killed by wandering gangs who just roam around wanting to beat up anybody and steal whatever little bit you might have. Or the cold will kill you. Loneliness will kill you. And unfortunately, a lot of people, homeless people, just jump over the edge of a wall and into the Liffey and are never seen again, and probably end up in the paper as a little paragraph this size. So, on behalf of all the homeless people, let me thank you for all that you do and all that you give and the help that you send towards them. And maybe as a little tribute to Greg, if you have some loose change, give it to whoever you see that's homeless, might need it. Because it could be the difference between life and death for them. It's not the money. It's not only about the money. If you get some money and you get into a hostel, you might be killed in the hostel because there's more drugs in hostels than there is on the streets. There's more violence in some of the hostels than there is on the streets. And nobody has a clue. Like, they really don't. Unless you've gone through it, you're not going to understand it. And you're not going to know what makes a person go into an alleyway or into a laneway or into behind the bushes or in trees or in the park to try to hide from society, just because of the violence and just because of the loneliness and just because of all the other things trying to kill you. So please keep that in mind. I know it's tough. I know everybody is struggling to try and have some money and pay their bills, and all I'm saying is loose change. I'm not talking, a large amount of money. Just whatever loose change you might have, just give it to them. Just say hello and just recognize them, because they'll talk about it later on, and they do, believe it or not. I would say, a lady said hello to me today. She saw me and she said hello, and it's a big deal. It means you're not invisible. It means that you're a somebody. It means you are recognized. And look, in the homeless community, there's going to be a few a-holes, pardon me French, but you're going to get that in even in society, you're going to get that. But the majority of the people I met who were homeless, they were the best people I ever met. They cared, they looked after each other, and they looked out for each other. And a few of them in Dáil Éireann, I think we'd have a really good society if we had people who knew how to deal with situations like homelessness. They don't know. I'm 22 years this year helping Dublin Simon community. 22 years. And homelessness is worse today than it ever was. And that's not a reflection on Dublin Simon or on Focus Ireland or Peter McCrary or any of those agencies. It's a governmental thing that's just, there's no votes in the homeless people, so they're not going to bother with it. And that's a simple fact. There are more homeless in Ireland today than there was in 1916. There are 15,000 individuals homeless, and 60% of the homeless population are children. And it's to our eternal shame that you go down to the birthplace of our nation at the GPO every night, and you will see 300 to 400 people, families. Some of them are working, some of them have jobs, some of them have respectable jobs, but they can't make ends meet and they can't feed their children. And so they go down and they get food outside of the GPO, the birthplace of our nation, where it is enshrined in our constitution and in our proclamation that we should cherish all of the children all of the time. That's in our proclamation. And the people who are looking for votes today, they haven't read that. Somebody hasn't given them that memo to tell them that the children are our future. The children are as equal in this country as anybody else, and that we are all equal. And the only thing that separates us is our blood run. The thing that joins us together, there's a lot of things separates us, but there's one thing that joins us all together. We all bleed red. And I have no time for, this idea of, all the immigrants are coming here and they're stealing our jobs and they're doing this. Look, let me just say this, right? 2,000 years ago, Joseph and Mary left where they were living under Roman occupation. They left Nazareth and they went to Bethlehem, which is modern day Palestine. And they went there. So they were immigrants. Mary and Joseph were immigrants. And Jesus was born a refugee. And for the last 3 years of Jesus' life, he wandered through Samaria, and he wandered through Galilee, and he wandered through all of the different cities in between, preaching the gospel and telling people to look after each other. And he was homeless for the last 3 years of his life. So if you can't see Jesus in the face of a homeless man, if you can't see that, then you won't see him in paradise. Because we are supposed to love everybody, cherish everybody, look after everybody. But this state hasn't got that memo. And they haven't had it for 100 years. We've had 100 years of zig and zag, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil. Hasn't worked. And I'm not suggesting that we should throw them all out, the baby with the bathwater, and start all over again, but I can tell you something. There has to be a change. It can't be allowed to continue that people should die on the streets and die in laneways and die in doorways and die in the Mater Hospital because the state can't look after you. The state should be able to look after us all, and there should be no need for a queue of families outside of the GPO every night. It breaks my heart to see the capital city, the birthplace of our nation, to see all the families. And I don't care where they come from. I don't care what colour their skin is. All I know is that they're hungry and they're there and they need help. So let's be, this year, a little less judgmental, a little more tolerant, a little more understanding, and let's give a little more dignity back to the people who don't have anything, including their own dignity. Because if you have to beg, you have to give away your dignity. René Descartes, the French philosopher, once said that when you give a beggar a coin, you give him a piece of metal, and the beggar gives you his dignity. And that's a very high price to pay for a piece of metal. So let me just end it on that note. We're not going to fix it here, but it's something to think about for the future. That when you see a homeless person, think of them as somebody's child, somebody's father or mother, somebody's sister. If you see them like that, then they gain a little bit of dignity back. And if you say hello to them, you give them back that respect that they deserve, and you give them a reason to live. All of that just because you said hello. So this Christmas, if you have a bit of loose change, give it to them. And if you haven't, please say hello. Good night. God bless and thank you.